Hi, my name is Patrick, and this is Tactilicious and Craftilicious, a small little channel that's dedicated to games that have more of a tactical aspect to them, crafting, survival, kind of that type of games. Obviously, I play all kind of games, as you're seeing me through my Next Fest demos. I'm not entirely against playing different games that falls outside kind of specific kind of genre. But this video in particular is going to be about the 8 must-play games that's still in early access that fits within the open world survival kind of genre, crafting games. And these are all in early access right now. So you can mostly get these for a discount when Steam have their discount weekends going on. I would suggest that you do. Now, obviously, everything is subjective when it comes to what you particularly like. I happen to think these are pretty great. They're not perfect. No game is perfect. But these are great games that you can really spend a lot of time in and enjoy. They fit very openly within the genre of the survival open craft kind of type games. Not all of them are super open world, meaning that they are in a vast universe, so to speak. Some of them are more contained on an island, for example, but a fairly large island in that case. And then you have others that are lighter on the crafting aspect and more on the building or communal building kind of stuff. So these are the different games that I have played and continue to play, and I suggest that you pick it up if you have a chance. These are all great additions to enjoy 2025 with. So, first off the bat, we are going to talk about Nightingale. I understand that it had a rocky start, and there's not a hell of a lot of people that are into Nightingale, unlike some of the other ones that I'm going to talk about. This falls within the niche of something like a Victorian gas punk. So it's set, I would assume, late 1800s, early 1900s perhaps. And it has that art style about it, like the Victorian era art style. The story itself is intriguing to me. So these are the Fey realms that you have stumbled into. There used to be a vast network between the Fey, think elven kind of type fantasy world or its own realm, and then the humankind. And then humankind started, I don't know if the story says invaded or kind of started their stuff into these realms. And then this event happened. The Pale. This event that consumed what seems to be the entire Earth, and you are the one escaping that and running into the webways and then finding yourself working yourself to Nightingale. Now, this is in early access, so one of the drawbacks, of course, was in the very beginning when it was first released on early access, it was not a very stable format. Now they have that you can play both offline and online. Offline, of course, is stable. It is fully co-op, so you can play co-op with other people. And it's a very charming game in that case. Now, there are a couple of things that make this game, in my opinion, superior in many ways. First of all, once they did the storied realms, that was the kind of like the remake. They added a lot more framework around the story of Nightingale. Now, Nightingale, I think, is going to be the next huge update, which is the city itself that you're trying to reach. And from there, you're going to have the end game. So the end game is still missing in that sense. Although, I would say that once you get to the watch, which is the step before Nightingale, you're still pretty high end up when it comes to both itemization and all that. Now, it doesn't have levels or skills or abilities like that. What you do have is one of the deepest crafting system among most of the games that I have played. And there are a number of videos that I have made, both just from the gameplay early on to about the first storied realm, and also something about the crafting. So I'm not going to go deep in on that. That's kind of sort of an aspect that you should definitely discover if you like crafting. But I can tell you that there are no other game that I have played so far, either on full release or still in early access, that had that kind of depth of just being able to make the item yours in pretty much any way you want. Now, all systems are incremental in the sense that you are just adding more DPS or more alpha damage or it chops wood faster, something like that. But the way you can create an item here, you determine whether it's going to be strictly on the alpha damage side or if it's going to be something like extreme crit chance, right? So all of those things are something you can bake into these recipes to make the items that you want. Pretty much all facets, including food. Food, you determine what kind of bonuses go onto it, even though it's just your standard, biscuits, right? The components that you put into it, that determines the overall value of the item. So again, you can check out the video that I made on basic crafting, but it is a world that combines the mystique of the Fey realms, both as a random Fey realms that you can go visit as many times as you want to, and also, of course, the existing Fey realm, the storied Fey realms, so to speak. And there are many different cool creatures in any of these areas. It also hints to an overall story that is interesting to me. So there is this storyline. What is the Pale? How is that have anything to do with the kind of events that you come across? And there also looks like the Winter Court. Again, they haven't released all the details on that. It's still in early access. But that seems to be the bad guy, so to speak. I highly recommend it. If you have a chance to support the team, you should. It is a game that you can plow many hours into. And if you absolutely also like the crafting part, then this is the game to play. Again, I understand that I had a rocky start. But the art style and the feel and the story underneath it all has something charming, something interesting to really look into. And as they flesh out everything else, the story and everything is going to come together too as well. So you feel that it's something there. Now the next one on my list is ASKA. And I'm not just liking it because it has a Nordic theme to it. You know, my people with the horns on their heads. It is a very interesting communal game that I think is better fleshed out than other one like Soul Mask. Now I wanted to put Soul Mask on this list, but I didn't for a reason. It's janky. I didn't enjoy the interface at all. It wasn't intuitive. It felt like there was just missing portion of it that made it more like a very generic experience. But it seems like there's a number there. That is also in early access, so it might come to the point that I will include that whenever they release an update that fixes those kind of things. But back to ASKA. So what is ASKA? Well, apparently you were a bunch of tribes in the Nordic country somewhere, and you made the gods mad. So while you're out there on your ships going somewhere, they got pissed, and the gods pretty much stranded you on this island. It's a fairly large island, and you are in full control of being able to kind of put in how you want it, the island to be, whether you're just going to have a lot of hills, mountainous, whether it's going to be flat, what kind of resources, how many enemies, etc. So you could probably categorize it as an open world for sure, but more like a semi-open world since it's self-contained within this island, which is still fairly large, right? But within that, you're tasked to become the tribal leader. So you go in, you start waking up the villagers, giving them commands as far as what to do, and then build out your village. And it's pretty detailed too. As far as what you can make them do, and as far as what you can do within the actual map itself, it's all the standard fare of the survival crafting. As far as eating, and as far as all those other things, chopping down trees. The latest update also made it so you can replant forest, which is good because like everything that has a finite kind of product like timber and iron, well, once you run out of that, you kind of pretty much just run out of the game itself. And they also have a way of re-orifying caves. Don't ask me how, but it has something to do with some exploding egg sacs and whatnot. But the main thing is that you now have a way of getting resources back, so you don't feel like you have to stop because you plundered the entire island. And since you are in control of the different either mythological beasts that you could fight or something like wolves and bears, oh my, uh, you have then a way of pretty much setting up your experience the way you want it. Do you want it to be light on fighting, more on building village, or do you want to be everything like you drag your knees across broken glass? Which is an expression I use for people that really want to make it hard for themselves. Now, the one thing that I will say that I never enjoyed is the aggressive attrition loss on all items, and the fact that the most basic items you can't fix. And the other ones, when it comes iron, once the shaft, for example, on your axe breaks, you can always reuse the axe head and make another tool out of it. But there was so much of that that ended up just being you making tools for your villagers over and over. That's all I spend time doing. So normally when I look at games, they're kind of sort of like a movie, right? You have the beginning with the struggle, you have the middle with the build-up, communal, and then you have the third part is your exploration and going to the end game, like the story arc. I just got stuck doing so much what felt like one third in, because you're building up a village, and then you had to deal with all the just attrition loss of items. Every single stick has attrition loss. I get it. They want to make it as bleeding real as possible. So everything spoils, everything breaks, and lose attrition. So if you don't pick up timber enough, that happens. Now it looks like when you finally put them in storage that it doesn't break as quickly, but boy, it's ridiculous. I'm really not a fan of this attrition loss stuff. If there was a way for me to turn that off or turn it down radically so I could actually enjoy just playing the game, that would be awesome. But it's more than that. Pretty much everything becomes a mini game. And what I mean with that is that if you want to make just an ingot, right, that you're going to make an iron axe out of, so first you're going to have to smelt it down. Then you're going to have to get rid of the slag or the impurities. So you have to bang that out. And then you're going to have to make it into a clump that you can then form into an item. So that is it's like 2-3 steps of just banging on stuff and rotating them and banging on it some more in order to just make a couple of ingots that you then are going to make an item out of, that you then are going to have attrition loss on, that you give to one of your villagers, and once it break, you're going to have to put another shaft in them. Now, you don't have to reshape the axe head, but you have to go through the steps of creating another item again, as far as putting the shaft on and whatnot. And that to me is just so tedious it felt like work. Did not like that aspect at all. What I did like with ASKA is that it had a very smart system of choosing the right tool for the right job. So normally in games, and you could take pretty much all of them, you usually swing by hitting the left button on your mouse, right? Standard fare, or you hold it in, and it smacks down the tree. And if you then need to pick up, say, rocks, or you need to mine, then you have to go to your pickaxe. And if you then need to fix a building, you need to pick your hammer. That's standard fare. And if you have a decent amount of quick slots, you can just put them into quick slots and just switch them over. However, if you then have a system where there are a lot of fighting, then you might have a sword, and you might have a shield, and you might have a bow. You might have all of those different things. In this system, when it comes to anything that has to do with a tool, it's, I think it was F or E that you hit and use for all of them, and it will auto switch to the tool that you need to use. So you just hold one down button. It will tell you what tool it needs. Say pickaxe if you're wanting rocks out of something, right? And then it just automatically switches to that and use that. And then if you then go over to smacking down a couple of trees, then it switches over automatically to the axe, because you're using this command, say E, and it just switches automatically from the inventory, so you never have to set them up on your quick bar. You can use that for the good things like foods and health and whatever that might be. And you don't have to then worry about all those tiny little tools that you might have in your inventory, but that you constantly have to switch out, because there's more of the tools than there are quick slots. Brilliant. I wish every single game out there had something like that. That it will auto switch to the right tool, so you don't constantly have to mess around with your quick bar for all those kind of mundane things. Because you will not always need a hammer to build something, and you might not always want to have the pickaxe ready. What you want to have ready pretty quickly would be if you get attacked. Now, ASKA is kind of like a top-down third perspective. It is a pretty cool game. It has a very good atmosphere. The day and night cycle are entirely adjustable for you. And the unfortunate part is that, yes, it's survival, so you have to drink and eat all the time. That portion gets annoying. But again, that's what most survival games are about. Now, the next one on my list that I do suggest that people play would be Aloft. And Aloft is a chill vibe one. For example, you don't have to drink and eat all the time. You can drink and eat, but they only confer bonuses for a period of time. So you have a small health bar, and then by eating certain recipes, you extend that health bar. You get a bonus on it. And that lasts, depending on what meal you have, it lasts for a while. This is, in my opinion, probably the greatest chill vibe way of doing a game, where you focus on, yes, you can do these things, but they are not necessarily needed all the time, and you don't waste a lot of time with it. The downside with Aloft is that it is fairly empty right now. So you have certain storied island that you go to. And again, you can check out my videos on it, since I'm doing a series of them. And you pretty much just start out by being swept up from a storm, crash landed on this main island. So those main islands and some of the other crest islands that teaches you about valuable things, those ones are handcrafted and pretty darn awesome. It has such details, such mystique, and it kind of adds a lot of flavor to it. The rest of it is like bland soup, the bland soup that you can make. And that is unfortunate, because it just feels like you have to go through all these other random islands that are pretty bland for one or two things maybe that you find just in order to move on to the next segment. So there's a lot of empty stuff. And even though some of them have encounters on it, like you fight this mushroom invasion, it still gets a little bit boring if you go through something where you have a lot of encounters and it was intense, and all you get is a tiny little heartstone or some rare material that, you know, did you really want to go through this whole thing to fight all that just for a tiny little reward like that? Also, there's, in my opinion, a drawback with the actual unlocking of technology or things you can craft. And that is that have either this stone, which gives you new items that you can unlock, or you have these anchors, which gives you new things for your ship island. So the island then get better sails on it, or different things like that. And then you have the big, I call it crests. I don't think they're really called something like that. Anywho, so there's this picture of whatever empire existed before you got there, right? And that will teach you some of the major things, the major crafting items, or the major things like your wings that you fly around with, for example. The drawback with this is that it's randomized to a certain point. So the knowledge stones that you come across, they will teach you depending on which biome you're in. If you go to a new area, there might be a refresh with new important things that you can unlock. So you're first going to get the 3-4 items that are really valuable for you. And then the rest is just derivatives of random stuff. And that is garbage, in my opinion. Because your motivation to go out on this adventure is not just to float around in space on your flying an island and swoop between islands and maybe pet the goat. Yes, you have goats. The point you're doing it is because you want to discover what happened to both the people and how to maybe get back to your home, right? That motivation is usually because of you have a reason to discover, right? But if you feel that all you're going to get is another pillow, this one made out of lint or maybe a wool pillow, then you are going to be pretty disappointed when you go through all these different islands just to find an unlock of a pillow, another pillow. A much better system, in my opinion, have always been that you get points, like research points or things like that, or experience that allows you then to unlock exactly what you want. Because now you're driving it. You're driving the reason why you're doing things. So if you know that you have unlocked everything that you can within a biome that makes sense to you and what you're interested in, you will then move on to the next more easily instead of getting disappointed having to find another stone and another pillow or another chair or another little table and stuff you don't care about ever. And that is the drawback. And also there's a certain gating of progression. I played it now several different times because of the fact that they had some critical bugs and things of the nature, so you had to restart in order to be able to play it fully. And I got fairly far, and the only thing I ever unlocked was a stone sword. Now there's no attrition loss on any of this stuff, so that's not the issue. It is progression. You don't really get better clothing, you don't get better wings until far into the game itself. So you feel like there's no progression other than just getting pillows and chairs and another bed type or whatever. And that really was weird to me. Also, some of the things that you do unlock, you can't even use it because you can't find the material because, again, there's some progression gating going on that makes the whole feel very flat for a long time. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say about Aloft, other than I like it. It just they just need to tighten up and make it feel engaging and interesting and go into all these places and explore. You can't survive on chill vibe alone. Sorry, just don't work that way. The next one on my list is Astrometica, which is, everybody says it, so I'm gonna say it too, and I don't disagree. It's Subnautica in space, but specifically because of the art style. Subnautica in space. That's such a is such a comparison that it's weird because it is not Subnautica at all. Subnautica in space would be if you have similar space monster, Leviathan monster that's chasing you, and all you have is a little knife. Okay, that would be Subnautica in space. But I think it is because the art style is so similar, the way you build your bases look pretty much similar in art style, and the progression-wise, as far as how you go deeper into it, it's also very similar. So I can understand the similarities both just by the art style itself, but also kind of how the progression works. Now, Astrometica, I haven't played it on my channel. I just started this channel, by the way. So that's one reason, but also because the first release in early access just one area. They have a very impressive and aggressive roadmap that looks interesting. I question if they're gonna be able to do it. It seems to be a small dev team. They sure have made a lot of happy gamers because the game works pretty good. So the question is, when they come up with the latest a couple of updates, and that's when I'm going to start playing again, how much more they have built out and what additional things that you could do. Now, I'm not going to use the save that I already have because it looks like they're going to revamp the whole first area and then the other areas too. So it's kind of be like playing Satisfactory, right? I had to restart that one so many times I gave up eventually until it came out in full release because there were so many areas that changed. And I just didn't feel like replaying the game over and over and over again. Astrometica is phenomenal though. Right now you just have a tiny little laser rifle at the best. So when you're fighting certain aliens or those robot drones or whatnot, it can be painful, especially since you can't make fabric. You can only find fabric, and fabric is what you need in order to make bandages. So it comes to a point where you're just not progressing. But at that point, I had unlocked all the things and found everything that I could, so it wasn't really any point playing anyway. But it's a phenomenal looking game. The atmosphere is excellent. The fact that you go to all these different places, find messages, and kind of try to discover what happened. It is a perfect story arc for great things to happen in the future. So it all depends if they can actually tie together a good story to move it forward. Because eventually it becomes like all other games, right? You just done everything. Now they're just incrementally improving certain things to the next area and whatnot. But it looks like the roadmap gives you a really good idea of just start here. You build out a small little base, and then eventually you're gonna have a whole space station, and eventually you're gonna have a huge ship, etc. So I'm really curious as to where they are going with it, and if they just keep on being that excellent with the kind of quality we've seen so far, it's gonna be one of the greatest games for sure. Now the next one on my list is Enshrouded. Now, I will confess that I haven't played Enshrouded a humongous a lot, but what I played I enjoyed. So here you are, the Flameborn. And the really cool thing about this game, other than the story is pretty good, it's a very interesting story, and it's, would it be rude for me to say boilerplate? Because, you know, it's this mushroom blight thing that is growing and killing the world and taking over, and you are out there trying to revive all these other NPCs to help you and get rid of it. Basically, it's like a mushroom corruption. And where haven't you heard that kind of like the pale from Nightingale mushrooming? You have the mushrooms that are taken over in the loft. Mm. And then there's something going on in Astrometica too that seems to be some kind of growth that's just growing everywhere. So, yeah, a lot of these story elements become pretty boilerplate when you think about it. But I enjoyed the game and the fact that you, unlike for example in Nightingale or Astrometica or Aloft, it does seem to be more of an RPG experience. You have skills, you have abilities, you have different classes that you can play around with, and it seems to be very loose fitting too. So you're not forced into say being just a ranger or just someone that beats people up by punching them in the face with something sharp. You do have magic too, so all of those things seems to be you could take pick the pieces that you enjoy and kind of make your own little RPG experience out of it. And I do enjoy that. I think that's really a fantastic concept. I just haven't played it a truck ton. I just got unfortunately, I got side quested by a lot of other different games that I've been playing that I enjoy too. But I do believe that I need to get into that game, get far enough to get an idea whether I super like it or not. So that's my confession here. But it looks awesome. It feels awesome. I just haven't gotten so far that I can tell whether or not it's one of the best games I've played. Now the next one on my list, and it's not out yet, but I did play the demo, and that's Lost Skies. And as we discovered is that there was a team, and they both had an idea, and then they split up. One made Aloft, one made Lost Skies. Apparently. I might have that story all wrong. But you can definitely tell that they, at one point, were kissing cousins of each other. Because you have pretty much the same element. You have these sky worlds with islands, right? And in one, like Aloft, is more of a tribal, medieval, or even further back than that, since you will have a stone sword for forever, so maybe like Stone Age-ish. And then you have like you can take the islands, make it into pretty much a boat, and then just go fly around with it. Lost Sky seems to be more like a lost civilization that was destroyed by these monstrous things, aliens, and you wake up from some kind of cryo sleep, and you have guns. You don't have bows, you don't have stone swords, you have guns. So in that alone, it's different in both flavor and genre. And I don't think you have flying islands, but you do make ships, like in Raft, right? Where you build out a ship and you can play co-op. So would you say that it's Aloft in the future? I don't know. That sounds a little bit corny to say it that way, but they are definitely structurally the same idea concept, but just carried out a little bit differently. So I don't know exactly how the lore is going to be, but it felt like it was more handcrafted as a idea, very much like say Astrometica, right? Whereas Aloft seems to be more of just a world that's created. It just throws in the islands a little bit here and there. So if you restart, it's going to be completely different. But some of the main islands are, like the stored islands, are always going to be the same. So that's, in that case, it's pretty much a different experience. And go check out my demo or download it and play it yourself and make up your mind. It just looks nice, and it had a good vibe to it. A little bit janky when it came to shooting and stuff, but that might just be that I ran it in 4K and maybe it was just not optimized for that. But other than that, pretty good. Now for my next game, it's Lens Island. Now Lens Island, and again, I'm confessing here, I haven't played a tremendous amount, but it's more of a cartoonish experience with a third-person perspective top-down. With a third-person perspective top-down. And I like that. I like that feeling of when you walk around. It's just a whole different feel. It was a little bit janky as far as movement-wise, but it had almost like a retro feel to the exploration and everything like that. The soundscape is excellent. It is graphic-wise nothing super special, but my understanding is that it's a small dev team, or even just a single dev, that have managed to make a pretty impressively large, decent, fun game. And it also seems to have some kind of a journey or story to it. It's kind of... It was just something about it when I was playing it that made me intrigued. Why didn't I play it more? I don't know. I think I just got sidetracked with so many other games. But it's something I'm looking forward to actually going back to here in 2025, for sure. And the last one on my list is going to be Palworld. Yes, the Palworld. Yeah, you are playing with pocket monsters. Yes, you capture them. You might not have to capture them all, but it is in any respect about collecting pocket monsters. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I don't want to get sued by Nintendo. I certainly don't have the channel for it. But I found this charming in this handcrafted world that they had. So it's not procedurally created worlds, but it's handcrafted. And there was something intriguing about being able to collect these monsters, befriend them. They all have their own skills, and you can certainly also make them more skilled. And then you can put them to work. You can either take one with you or a couple of them with you to fight with, or you can just leave them at your home base where they can protect from raids, incoming raids, and then just do things that you want done. Say, chop down wood, get your stone, cook food. There was such a cool little synergy about what you created and the type of PAL that you collected that was more ideal for certain things, like melting down ingots, right? That would be something like a fire PAL. Or build ammo, because they were like better at crafting. Or just chopping down trees, or making stones, because they were good at mining or anything like that. And then of course there was the Palworlds that could freeze things, so you put them on actually your refrigerator to keep your refrigerator cool, so your food didn't spoil. These were all the kind of cool things that they had put together as a synergy. I played it until the very end, until I was pretty top when it comes to level, and I had explored everything. So I kind of stopped playing it because you got there pretty quickly, unfortunately. And now there have been a lot of different updates lately that just expands on the world and the places that you can go to. So now I'm interested in going back to it to start from scratch, to see what they have added in addition and how different that experience is from when I was playing it. It is a cool game. There are cool pals. And the idea of just taking them out to be your friend that you can either fly around on or riding on. And then apparently now you can actually send them out on missions themselves to take on mini-bosses, so you can get the rewards, but don't necessarily have to go to all the mini-bosses yourself and do the job yourself. So, It's definitely a game that if you're into that kind of stuff, or just being a game where you like the communal portion, kind of like with ASKA, you're building a village. Here you can build a base with all these cool different pals that you have collected. Or you can just go out looking for the baddest, meanest pal out there and take it on as a challenge to befriend them, so to speak. Make them your pocket monster. That sounded worse than I really meant it to be, but yeah. There is a final game that I will add in addition that I have played and I'm playing right now. It doesn't necessarily fit into the category of open world survival crafting, not in the traditional sense, and it wouldn't even be a traditional sense like a city builder. But I want to mention it as one of those like a little bit extra nugget that you can look at. A game that I really think that you should play in 2025. If you can pick it up on a discount, that's even better. But that is Airborne Empire. It's a super charming game, and I suggest that you check out the videos that I made on it so far. But it's something that kind of fits it within this whole realms, but more like an RTS experience, a city building experience in an open world crafting kind of thing. And it's the unique way of building a flying city, and the way you put the items together and how that city, dependent on your architecture, how that behaves when you have to fight things like pirates, right? But also you go out exploring, you pick up things, and you craft things, and you expand your city. All of those things are very survival crafting experiences. And the fact that you explore, you have certain biomes that you can go to and get more items from, and explore, and also go on quests. You even have artifacts, basically items that provide bonuses for some of the things like, say, your weapons or your production or using less coal and things like that. So there's a plethora of tactics involved in it. There's definitely crafting in a sense on how you build to put together your flying city, and then of course exploration galore. There is a story there. The story is whimsical because you are a flightless bird. Actually, your entire city of flightless birds, and how you fly is you're made a flying city, which is ironic. And all of these things, when you look at this, the dialogue itself, whimsical, funny, yet somewhat serious. You do have a threat in the pirates at all time, so it's not just fun and games, and it's not just chill and vibes. And you do have survival aspects. You need to feed your people, you need to let them have something to drink, and you also need to keep throwing coal into the burners. Otherwise, your ship will sink and crash, and you don't want that. Ship, I said, city ship. How about a city ship? So that is a mention that is a little bit outside strictly the third person perspective, first person kind of type experience of all the other games that I mentioned. But it is one that I think you can fit into it in a Venn diagram of what is an open world survival crafting game. So that would be just something you could think of. And if you have a chance to pick up any of these games, whether it's discount or not, you should. You have a terrific day, great weekend, the best life you can ever live. And as I always say, until we meet again, adieu.